This is Jessica Taylor interviewing George Rhodes on June 21st, 2013 at 11:30 p.m. at Office Supply on Main Street. Mr. Rhodes, can you please state your full name?
George Sinclair Rhodes, Jr.
Okay. And what is your date of birth?
January 26, 1947.
Where were you born?
Actually in Richmond. MCV. It was before the bridge, and the ferries weren't very good. My mother was from Goochland, which was on the other side of Richmond, of course. And it was a natural spot, I guess.
Okay. So you were driven to the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess my mother was driven.
Right.
I was with her.
You were there technically, yeah.
Yeah.
What were your parents' names and occupations?
My mother's Merwin Gathright Rhodes. She was a school teacher. Dad is George Sinclair Rhodes, and after the Army, I guess he was a stock clerk and a butcher for J.H. Martin and Company. Started in the dry cleaning retail men's clothing store. Went in the Army, and that's what he did when he came back, was in the Gloucester men's shop. And then he became deputy sheriff and was elected sheriff and retired.
Okay. And what about your mother?
She taught school, stopped for a number of years to have children, and she went back to teach, and she retired.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that, I don't know, for some reason, dates don't click with me. I just don't have a handle on when these things happen. Can hardly remember my birthday.
If you keep it in the decade, that's fine. So I know we're sitting there right now, but what is your occupation?
Well, I own an office supply store in the courthouse, and I've been here since 72, 73. I acquired it fully in 85. I finished high school here and went into the Newport News apprentice school. I left that, went in the Navy, came back, worked in the yard for a couple of years, and then the shipyard, and then I started back here.
When and for what years were you stationed in the Navy? Oh, if you can't remember years, it's okay.
I went in the Navy in January of 1970 and was on active duty. It was a special reserve program that I enlisted in. And so I was on active duty for like 13 months. Came back and married Martha Rhodes. Mm-hmm. Martha was from Danville, and we started set up our housekeeping in the apartment above my parents' shop, where my mom and dad started, and where I was born, where lived the first 6 years of my life. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of a neat thing to. It's just a little apartment, but it was still a lot of memories. Mom and Dad were excited to see that happen. And
well, if there were a lot of memories, can you tell me some of them?
Just thinking about my growing up there, my grandparents coming to visit, and it was a second floor apartment. You can peek out the windows and see this Main Street, old rattly windows. We were upgraded a couple of times, but the apartment had a pull-down staircase, a huge attic, and we'd wash clothes and hang them up on the line up in the attic, and lots of things were stored up there because it wasn't a lot of space in the apartment itself. But of course, this was the 40s and 50s. We didn't have a shower. It was an old legged tub, and a lot of the convenient things that we take for granted anymore have evolved over my lifetime. So there's lots of changes in that direction. Adjacent to the apartment were a couple of garages, and my brother and I would hang out in some of them a couple of times. It's get chased out of the service base, but it was neat growing up in the courthouse. A lot of kids around to play with all the time. There's a building next door to it, but when we were growing up there, it was a park, which made it really convenient. I remember my uncle bringing us some stick candy, and we were delighted to be able to play in the sand with them. We didn't get much candy.
So in the park, what was in the park? Was it just a green space?
Just a green space. I don't remember any swings, just a sandbox.
Fair enough. What is your earliest memory of Main Street?
Don't have too many real early memories of Main Street. There was an apartment building where, what's it called, a Daily Press building, which is a yellow building on the corner of the Circle. It was 2-3 story wood framed apartment building, and we had a couple of friends that lived in that. There were some other wooden buildings going around the Circle next to the Bodytot Hotel. All gone now, but my mother had a friend that kept shop in one of them. It's like the leg stool shop, I believe that's what it was called. And another lady that was a friend of the church member, and Esther Haley had a shop in one of the buildings. It was like a boarding house, gone now, but that was a neat experience for my mother. She enjoyed antiques and going to sales and shopping like that.
How often would she go shopping?
That I wouldn't know. I can't remember shopping too much. Just that it was an ordeal to drag 2 little kids out and keep us in line. Mm-hmm. My brother and I, and even to this day, the 2 of us get together and we start acting up.
Give me an example of what acting up means.
Well, we'll just play, chase each other around, just having fun. Mm-hmm. Find something to talk about and pick on each other a lot.
You mentioned church. Which church was yours?
Grew up right up the street here. It was First Presbyterian Church. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure why that was our home church. I'm guessing it had to do more with my mother than my dad. The Rhodes side of the family went to several different churches. So I don't know, something that never came up in family conversation. But my mother, and logistics was entirely different then because the church was so close. That could have been a reason, especially for my mother, because the church was further away than where they go frequently. But
were there any social events associated with the church that you would go to?
I can remember drying dishes, dinner, suppers. Biggest thing I remember about church and growing up was that when service was over, a lot of people stood around and talked. And we don't seem to do that now. It's just a long time, especially for a kid that wants to get home and change out of his Sunday, get in some play clothes. But the community that we have in the church now is made up from people that come from a lot further geographic location, and the area has changed. And maybe that has something to do with it. There was probably what I'd say a tighter knit community church, because every community probably had their own churches, and people would stay and worship closer to home, which made sense when transportation wasn't as reliable as it is today.
Right. Going further down Main Street, which drugstore did you go to?
Morgan's. The Morgans were also church members. It was on the same side of the street as the shop that my father owned. So we didn't have to cross the street to get to it. Not that the street was that busy, but I had worked there for a stint in high school. I think lots and lots of kids in the community worked there. But it was a little confusing. They had a general manager, and it was owned by Mr. Happy Morgan, and he had two sons that were pharmacists and a daughter-in-law. So they had all the pharmacists working there, and one person would tell you how to do it this way, and another one would say, I want it done this way. And you'd go to the general manager and find out what's the best way to do this, Charlie?
Growing up, what did the interior of the drugstore look like?
On the right was a soda fountain. In the back across it was the prescription counter. Cosmetics were over on the left-hand side. There were brass cabinets in there that had merchandise in them, and one of the responsibilities was to polish them. I'm still polishing them. I have them here now.
Do you really?
Yeah. When I was in high school, as a senior, I guess I was out of high school. That summer, the drugstore moved to this shopping center. And I was helping the drugstore move and helping a guy from the fixture company set up the fixtures in the drugstore. And they probably sold them to the stationery store that was setting up here. And they're out of here now.
So when did you acquire this building?
Well, this has been, Bridges was the first office supply, and it was next door. And I moved over here in 2000, so I doubled the square footage. Came up with computers, new system because of the fear of Y2K.
All right. What is your earliest memory of the Edge Hill service station?
I really never played a pivotal role in my life. I went by it, but never paid much attention to it. There was a guy named Andy James. His father they had Texaco Oil. It's down Ware Neck, and I would think about that, but never remember anything about the station. Growing up, it just wasn't part of where my parents went. I don't know why, but there was a station between the buildings that I grew up in, this one, and where we eventually settled, which was about a mile up north,
Was
Which
it
would-
the Amico?
which could have been an Amico station. There's a BP station for a while. There was also one in town where the senior center is. So a little one station there. And as teenagers, we lived up there where the Food Lion Shopping Center is, and in the woods up there on the other side of Virginia Power. And there was a station. It's in the property's in the middle of the bypass now, but there's a station on the corner there, and that's where we got gas. And
Did you know Andy James personally?
yeah, well, Andy was a few years earlier, but I think we were on the same football team for about a year.
Why is everyone in this town on the football team?
Well, the coach for the football team was also the PE coach. And so if he saw somebody running fast or strong, it was just a recruiting process that worked out well.
Just wondering. So you knew kind of that family, the Jameses and the Browns. What were they like? Were they active in community life?
Yes. Watson and his wife were friends of my parents through the fire department. And Dad was instrumental in with the fire department. And Watson lived near the courthouse, near the fire department. So they went to meetings for that together. And it's not something that my brother and I that were really involved with, other than he stayed with the fire department. I didn't, but I don't know Andy's parents very well. I know him to see him, but not. Don't remember that my parents really had time with him, spent time with him. You know?
So you're a member of the football team, and it's high school, and it's a Saturday night. What do you do?
Well, most of the games were on Friday night. So Saturday night, if I was dating some of the time, go to the movies. There was a drive-in here for a while, and we figured out how to get across the river and go to the movies over there. I didn't dance. There are some dances after the football games.
Why didn't you dance? It's not your thing.
I don't really know. My mother wasn't very musically involved. She had to teach the recorder in the 4th grade when she was teaching, but I don't think she really enjoyed teaching that. But we just didn't, I don't know, it didn't come very natural to me. And I don't guess there were that many dances, but
Did you have a car in high school?
I'm sorry,
Did you have a car in high school?
no. I shared one with Mom and Dad. Dad would drive the company van that delivered dry cleaning home, and we had a family car, and so we all took turns with that. Most of the time in high school, my brother was away, so it's not like brother and brother were competing for the car a lot.
So if you had the car, would you go on trips with it, or would you just stay inside the county?
We went to, me personally or as a family?
Both.
My mother was from Goochland, so the trips we took would be to Goochland County, and she'd take us up there in the summer for a week or so. We go up there for major holidays, especially Christmas. It was a big thing because there were lots of cousins, I mean, a number of aunts and uncles, but lots of cousins to play with, big house, a lot of food, a lot of desserts.
What about you personally or with friends?
Didn't drive much. Never could afford the gas, I guess, to even go riding around to see what's on the other side of the county line. More, I guess, destination oriented. Go to somebody's house, picnic or something.
You mentioned going away for Christmas. And I noticed that, depending on the generation I'm speaking to, different people had different traditions around Main Street or around the county broadly, like holiday decorations contests, or talk to a guy who was alive during Prohibition, and they would go around to each house and have cherry bounce, that kind of thing. Do you remember any Main Street traditions based on holidays or anything like that?
One of the things that, let's say there was a Main Street Association during the 60s, and they put Christmas trees outside all of the storefronts, and they were all lit. Trying to keep bulbs in them was tricky sometimes. Kids would swipe them, or some other merchant might have gotten a bulb, or it's hard to tell where they went. But it really was a kind of a neat ride through the town to see all of the merchants up and down the street with their little Christmas trees, because they were all bought the same. So the association had supplied the trees, and there wasn't a real competition there. It was just real comfortable looking.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Someone had also mentioned that, there might have been something related to Halloween. Does that sound familiar?
Don't remember much about Halloween. Trick-or-treating, a lot of people, let's see, when the time I'm thinking about, 60s, 70s, Gloucester hadn't had its growth spurt start, so there weren't any real subdivisions. People just lived down the road somewhere, and but the subdivisions are so dense. But at that time, people would come from their homes into town to trick or treat, because you've got house next to house next to house up and down 2 or 3 of the main streets, and it was a lot more activity in town. Then the subdivisions started popping up, and the traffic started moving out, and the last few years we've opened up Main Street, and all the merchants are giving out candy, so the place is getting swamped. Thousands of kids coming in. Lots of free candy.
Well, kind of speaking of, attracting people to businesses, did you find that, like, the revamping of the Daffodil Festival, various summer things that they do here, does that help business here?
Depends on the type of business. It really doesn't help my particular business, because having a parking lot in front of me, people tend to think of it as a great place to park. Everybody comes in early in the morning, fills up the lot, and leaves. Most of the regular customers of mine do their shopping in advance, or they don't come in on Saturday. Mm-hmm. They just know that they can't get in, they can't get out. They don't want to get stuck in a parade. Mm-hmm. And so for us, it's not a very profitable day. The restaurants, there are a few activities, groups, and some of the charitable organizations that do food vending and stuff probably doing real well. Somebody that's up on Main Street might, but down here we don't.
Yeah. How do you feel about it? Is that do you kind of weigh the community and the restaurants versus your business?
Well, it's just being part of the community to support and give back to the area that supports you.
Yeah, makes sense.
We lock the doors and go up and watch parades. I mean, it's one of the neat things about having the store here that gives us an opportunity to enjoy the Christmas and there's the Daffodil Parade and the Homecoming Parade. We always, the staff, I mean, my children have grown now. My grandchild's in the parade now. So.
Do you notice school traditions like that last throughout generations?
Well, I guess almost all schools have homecoming parades, and we still do. Fire trucks and dogs and horses, and bands. It's been hard to keep bands here. A friend of mine from the radio station and I were talking one day and says, it's a shame we didn't have a Christmas parade this year. We got together with Carol Steele and Georgette Hurley and founded a Citizens Christmas Parade Committee and started putting on Christmas parades for a few years. It's been picked up by a chamber and a couple other organizations now. Neither of us are actively doing it, but we started a current Christmas parade.
Where did you get the idea to do that?
Well, our children, I guess, were the main thing. I mean, we could have gotten along without it, but we wanted to do this for the kids. It's just, what's Christmas without a parade?
Well, that's the interesting thing about it, not to push you, but you could also just go to New York City or go to Richmond and see the Christmas parade there. So why here?
Well, this is where we are, and this is where the local people can enjoy and participate both into it. It's a festive time, and it just keeps a neat, good feeling at that time of year.
When you're kind of like creating events like this, what's the role of people that have more recently come here, like in the 80s, 90s, 2000s? Do you consider them part of the community?
If they get involved. Getting involved in the community makes you part of it. If you don't come out and it's like it's easier with children because there's always an activity. There's all sorts of scouting activities. If you choose a church, then you get into churches, you meet different people, and then you find somebody that you like, and then you decide, well, let's go to a ball game, let's go do this, let's do that. So that really doesn't make any difference whether you've just showed up, last year or have been here for 30 years or all your life. If you're involved, then you can become part of the community quicker and be accepted.
Has that always been the rule?
Well, we always have this. They come here where they understand, and that there is some stigma to that because we did have a growth spurt that brought in a lot of people that didn't grow up here. They don't understand, but some of them never make it their home because they know they're only going to be here 2 or 3 years. I had a lady that worked for me, and that was their mindset, that they didn't care to make it their home. It's just a stopping spot. And I thought that was a little bit, sad, but it makes leaving easier. And when you know you're leaving, then it's a preservation, self-preservation. And same way with buying stuff, if you've got more collectibles, there's more stuff you have to pack up. And they remove it every 2-3 years.
So how does that mindset affect the rest of the community? Is this, oh, well, they don't know anything mindset a response to suburbanization, or is it something that's always been there?
It's probably there in every community. I think that, there's little idiosyncrasies in every place you go, whether it be the one-way street or, there's so many little. We don't have a St. Patrick's Day parade here.
Why would you?
But, if you moved into an area and all of a sudden everybody's getting ready and you're not Irish and you're not thinking about it, it could take you by surprise. And I mean, not every community, but there's lots of that going on everywhere.
So when people decide not to make this place their home, how do you respond? For example, you said it's sad, but...
Well, I think it's sad because I'm a people person more so than... And so if you don't get involved with your neighbors and enjoy being part of a group to work to make an area better, then I think you're missing out on the response to that. It's fun to work with people on a common cause, and if you're not getting involved in anything, whether it be a social club or a civic organization, church, anything, then I think you're missing part of what life has to offer.
Just in your experience, when out of all of the come heres, who comes out and says, I want to be part of this?
Well, the lady that's not here that works with me today is a great example. Mary Jane and Sandy moved here a long time ago. I don't remember when. I met Mary Jane when my son was in Cub Scouts. And she's got 2 boys. And Sandy was her husband's in the Coast Guard in Yorktown. And they live in the courthouse. And she became a den mother, and I became pack masters. And so we had some interaction there. And one day I needed an employee, and Mary Jane, we were up here with a couple of we have some staff meeting in a restaurant, and Mary Jane was up there with a couple of people, and we were just chatting around, and I brought up the fact that I needed to hire somebody, and she said, well, my daughter's a senior now or something, the kids are going to college, I've got some free time, so we'll come on down, we'll talk about it. And she's been here about 15 years now. But they're active in a number of different organizations in the community. Sandy is active in his church. plays softball with the church. They have an organization and puts on some athletic events for schools. And Mary Jane's involved in the local theater group called Courthouse Players. She dragged me into it a few years ago. But you know, she's from Florida.
So where are the gathering spots for locals? And how have they changed over time?
Well, we didn't used to have a Walmart. So there's little places that people used to gather. Of course, the population is 4 or 5 times what it was. And the community softball teams are different. Still, school athletics brings a group of people together. Restaurants.
Which ones?
Well, all of them. I mean, Olivia's is up the street here. Courthouse Restaurant is another one. There's so many people that come in a Courthouse Restaurant that sit there and they have their little coffee fellowship in the mornings. There's another group that meets down at Hardee's. I mean, these are retired people. When I grew up, Morgan's had a drugstore. Morgan's had a soda fountain. And there was a group that was meeting in there. Of course, Morgan's is closed now. And I think they went to Hardee's or somewhere. But I would expect Damon's. It's a restaurant out here on 17. He seems to have a good morning breakfast crowd. I eat breakfast at home.
So how has the reason that people congregate at these places changed?
I'm not sure. I'm going to guess some of it has to do with, the expense and where each family is with their financial resources. As we have, our children, we find it more difficult to go out and eat because we've got 2, 3 more mouths to feed. It takes longer and harder. When they're small, when they're bigger, you're running them all over the place. And once you get them in school or something like that, you find that you've got a little bit more free time on your hands so that you can enjoy going out, getting up with another couple and enjoying a quiet meal. Sort of slows down the pace of life. I don't know that much of that has changed. The women in the workplace has probably made a big impact on who eats at home and bringing people home to dinner, because the way people cook has changed. This is an interesting part.
Yeah. How do you feel about that change?
Well, having come from a family that grew a garden and were able to buy larger quantities of food and freeze it and can it, it's not something that my wife and I are doing at this time in our lives. We're really busy. She commutes further to work, and I've got my own business that requires more than a short day, and we're both involved in other activities. So We've chosen not to raise a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a pantry to speak of. You can stop by the grocery store anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And there isn't one on Main Street anymore.
That's a sad thing, but that's just the way it is. When the last one, I guess, was Wallace Foods, and it burned. Well, not sure if it burned before or after the IGA out here where the library is now.
Mm.
But they've all been replaced by these big stores. And that's a shame in a way. I guess the variety is nice. Competition does some of that. Convenience, you lose some convenience for the selection.
Mm-hmm. As a competitor to some, I guess the term is wholesalers, how do you feel about the change over time in Gloucester getting larger stores that can compete with yours?
It's more difficult than it has been. People are shopping more convenience, I think. I have a lot of things that you can pick up in almost every store. And when I go in the drugstore, I'm amazed at the number of writing instruments that they stock and all the different things that, I mean, the drugstore, no, wait a minute, is it a grocery store? What is it? You know, everybody's wearing so many hats. They've lost their identity. And so now if you go in a drugstore, you're not sure if you're in a grocery store, or if you go in a grocery store, you're not sure if you're in a drugstore. Mm-hmm. They're all crossing over a lot. You go into Big Lots, and you wonder what the name has to do with anything. Because they're making product. I thought Big Lots was a store that bought big lots of stuff that they couldn't sell somewhere else. I think it's not what I thought it was. And where Ollie's, I believe, is just picking up a lot of product from other manufacturers. I don't see where they have their brand on things, where Big Lots does brand items.
Absolutely.
And of course, Walmart's the worst for that. They've taken so much of our American manufacturing to other areas.
That's true. So where does your customer base come from? Do you find that you have loyal customers that are consistent?
I do. That's an interesting observation because it's changed over the years. We have like in-house accounts, so I have charges for lots of different stores. And 15 years ago, I was sending out like 200 statements, but mail order and the internet sales have increased. The product lines have changed somewhat. Don't sell typewriter ribbons anymore. And the number of commercial accounts I have is diminished. Some of it is because the individual merchant may decide to use a credit card. So they'll issue credit cards and just they can track on a daily basis easier than waiting for a statement at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm. More specifically, how do you keep up with the increasing pace and change in technology?
Well, I have my computer systems. We've switched from more retail-based to more service-oriented. I'm not obviously fixing typewriters like I used to, but we do a lot of specialty copy work. We offer pack and ship, faxes, a lot of little services for a lot of people. We go the extra mile with the delivery and helping our clients a little bit more than say Walmart would. And we've got them to call us up, and we meet them in the front door with the package, or we come out to their car. And we've got a paraplegic that comes by all the time, and another lady that can't walk. So we'll go out and meet with them in the car, talk to them on the telephone, and figure out what they want and get it for them.
That's exactly what general stores used to do.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that kind of comparison?
I love it.
You love it?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I'm old. And I just like I said, it's the, you can go through the day, and just now when you said that, you smiled. And when you smile at somebody, they receive a tremendous, most of us receive an effect from that smile. And when you go out and you give somebody a package that they know that they couldn't have gotten without your help, they smile and they thank you. And it makes you feel good. And, that's gives you a real sense of purpose.
Okay. I really like that. And I know that you've also owned buildings and leased out to other businesses. Did those businesses share your same ethic?
I think they do.
What ones did you have in mind?
Well, Fields is a craft shop up the street here. And Robin is, she's done wonders with the building. And she's got a successful quilting business. And she's got a nice looking facility, and she treats her customers well. And I don't quilt.
Yeah, I would be surprised if you did. And you were talking about, doing wonders with the building. How do you feel preservationists? What can they offer Gloucester Courthouse?
Well, I think one of the other buildings we had is a beautiful example of that. We owned an old garage. My brother and I owned it. Thank you, Dad. And it was a fire sale. The building had a fire, and it was a landlocked car dealer. So they moved out on 17 where they could get some property. And he had this old building, and he rented it out for antique shops. 2 or 3 of them, a bookstore for a while. And finally, the last antique shop closed, and it sat vacant for a few years, and my parents passed, and my brother and I sold it to Kay Van Dyke, who is Gloucester Arts on Main. She has kept the historical significance of the building and created a complex there that's a strong attribute to the community. And it's just, I think this is not fair. Can get old. I think Mom and Dad would really be happy to see what's happened to that building.
Talk a little bit more about that. Or am I pushing you too hard?
Well, emotions are there. But my mother especially would enjoy the art aspect of it. She was an artist, and she loved to paint and sculpt, and she taught it in school, and she would just be having such a time with Kay in there. They have classes and all sorts of evening events, and I think that they'd just really be happy to see the building being used for something that benefits the community.
And you made it happen.
Well, I can't say that we can get any real credit for it, but I think it's Kay's doing. And the fact that it's just timing, you know. Lynn and I can't take any credit for it. You know, we helped Kay get the building. You know, we saw that she had the potential to do it. We worked with her on the initial purchase and stuff, but it was a good thing to do.
Absolutely. What's your vision for Gloucester's future?
Well, Gloucester has some problems with its geographic location because we have an industrial park that I've never felt like was going to really take off because we don't have a rail system. We're not a port. We don't have an airport. So manufacturing is going to be difficult to really do much here. We have a cannon plant that deals with printer cartridges, but that's pretty light and easy to handle. They get some trucks in there, and most of it's handled by UPS. So commerce, the commercial side of it, I just don't see where, you know, the seafood industry is real rocky. There's still demand for some of it, but it's I don't follow the seafood industry. I see the trucks running around, but it's got a struggle. We're concerned about pollution. My first wife worked for VIMS. She spent a lot of time fighting pollution in the streams, runoff issues that farming creates, and whether the cattle, dairy farms, or just regular agricultural, they all produce a certain amount of chemical waste that may find itself to the water. Retail stores, most of the people here still work out of the county, and they will naturally have time coming and going to most of them shop. Mass transit is not very prevalent here. We have a little service, but it's not very dependable. They're getting better. I've got a worker that comes in and assists the gentleman in the back, and that's how she uses to get around. But
That's wonderful. Do you have any other anecdotes you'd like to share?
no, I can't think of anything offhand.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir.